In the desert, you don't think much about architecture. Out here, nature dominates. There's no blueprints, no permission, just raw beauty shaped by time and heat. So, what am I doing here? I'm chasing something, maybe someone. Because here in this scorched emptiness is the legacy of one of the world's greatest architects, a man who turned the desert into his laboratory of sorts in which to demonstrate his design philosophy. The name? Frank Lloyd Wright. The philosophy? Organic architecture. Now, you've probably heard it all before. Books, articles, more documentaries than anyone asked for, a few by yours truly, about the man and his style. What's left to discover? Well, Wright's time in Arizona is often a footnote to the bigger achievements found in Chicago or New York. But this was his western base camp. It was here that some of his most important works were created. I want to know more about his time here. What brought him here? Why did he stay? And what traces did he leave behind? Let's go find out. Phoenix is ever expanding, stretching in all directions like it's trying to escape itself. Strip malls, gated communities, chain stores baking under the sun. But 100 years ago, this place was something else. Untamed, unforgiving, and for a man raised in the green rolling hills of the Midwest, this place must have been a tantalizing mystery. What pulled Wright here in the first place? Most say it started at the Arizona Biltmore. Drive up and you'll think, yeah, this looks like him. It hugs the ground. Its sandy tones echo the mountains. Copper flashes like cactus spines in the sunlight. The walls are built from textile blocks, an invention Wright used in his LA homes, concrete poured into wooden molds, reinforced with rebar. The original structure reportedly used 250,000 of them. Inside, the lobby feels like a cave, shadowy and cool, with slices of light. Up lighting reveals a drama that only a master architect could orchestrate. Just off the lobby is the Aztec room. Geometric, it's completely different from the rectilinear lines found elsewhere in the hotel. So yeah, the place screams Wright. His name's everywhere. There's a bar and a ballroom named after him, and there's Wright branded souvenirs in the gift shop. But the building's authorship is a bit murky, to say the least. Officially, Wright was hired as a consultant for the textile blocks, and the lead architect was Albert Chase MacArthur, a former Wright apprentice whose brothers led the hotel's early development. Wright's presence on site during construction, along with reports that he influenced all major design decisions, fueled speculation. In 1930, Wright claimed, quote, "Albert MacArthur is the architect of that building. All attempts to take the credit from him are gratuitous and beside the mark." But by the 1950s, Wright had changed his tune, suggesting that he played a larger role than previously stated. Well, why the change? Well, during construction, a patent dispute over the concrete block system led to a threat of a lawsuit. Wright may have downplayed his involvement to avoid bad press, giving MacArthur the spotlight for a time. Regardless, the Biltmore opened its doors in 1929, and with it, Wright's entry to Arizona. Soon after, he set up camp in nearby Chandler, being the sole architect of a new project, San Marcos in the Desert, commissioned by developer Alexander Chandler. Another resort with more textile blocks and seamlessly integrated into the foothills. Wright, his wife Olgavana, and 15 apprentices rolled in early 1929. They built a temporary camp later called Okato. Though temporary, the camp was designed with all the comforts of Taliesin. There was living quarters, a drafting room, kitchen, and even an electrical plant. This was glamping Wright style. True to form, he didn't build on top of the hill, but into it, leaving the crest untouched. The structures mirrored the nearby mountain peaks, with wooden frames and canvas roofs that filtered light and heat. Here, Wright lived immersed in nature, drawing inspiration and translating it into the plans for San Marcos. But 5 months later, the market crashed, the dream fell apart, Wright left, and the desert reclaimed Okato. These days, suburban homes crowd the area, and nothing marks what was once there. Unless you squint at satellite photos, spot faint outlines of what once was. All across Phoenix, though, Wright's fingerprints linger. There was the Rose Parson House, his first to use desert concrete, a blend of on-site source stone and cement. It burned down in 1943, but what remained sat there for decades until a road was built through the site. Blink and you'll miss what remains along the side of the road. There's the Alderman House, efficient, open, and built of a form of textile blocks and featuring corner windows. There's the Harold Price Senior House, again made of blocks, with walls of glass that made it look like a pavilion overlooking the desert landscape. The Raymond Carlson House brought some verticality to the desert, and the Boomer House had its bold roofline knifing through the sky. There was the David and Gladys Wright House. This house, designed for his son, features a spiraling ramp up to the main house. That idea of curves was found over at the Likes House, which looked like a rock formation perched within the foothills, and said to be Wright's last residential design. I wanted to see them all, and walk through these places for myself, to understand Wright and his vision. But most are still private homes, and I get it, nobody wants a curious YouTuber on their lawn. So I look elsewhere, for public places where Wright's legacy still breathes. And that takes me to the Gamage Auditorium at Arizona State University, with a dramatic colonnade and a pair of arched walkways that lead from the parking lot to the second floor. The plans were originally drawn for a cultural center in Baghdad. When the plans fell through, ASU repurposed them in 1957. When Wright died in 1959, his apprentices finished the job, completing it in 1964. And then there's the first Christian church, designed in 1950 but finally built in 1970. It rises from the desert like folded stone, sharp, spiritual, and quietly defiant. Later career Wright at its best. The building's grandeur is emphasized by the moat of green lawns and a parking lot. All those buildings, they're fragments, pieces of a vision scattered across the desert, but the heart of Wright's desert vision was always there. Taliesin West, not just a home, not just a studio, a desert camp turned philosophy. He bought 80 acres in 1937 and began building the following year. This wasn't some retiree fleeing winter. Wright was reborn, returned from the brink of obscurity with projects like Falling Water and the Johnson Wax Building. Taliesin West is a crash course in organic architecture, buildings stitched together by walkways and intention. It begins with a water feature, a cool breath of air in the desert heat. And then there's a path that leads to Wright's office. Here, redwood trusses spike the horizon. Inside, the heat lifts. Canvas ceilings soften the light. The space is both powerful and personal. And you understand instantly why clients tolerated his demands, because this is where genius lived. From there, your eyes are pulled toward the drafting room. Bold, asymmetrical trusses stand out. But Wright never lets you forget the desert. Your eyes dance between the building and the desert beyond, form and void, man and nature. And then it hits you, that hero shot, the angle that made it into every book, solid, timeless, like it was always here. Inside, you experience his signature compression and release. Tight, shadowed entryway opens to a bright great room, where floor-to-ceiling glass reveals an oasis in the desert beyond. You can't help but pause in the room and imagine the conversations. Wright holding court, lecturing on art and life. The room is rich with detail and the finer things of life, a piano and modern art, but always the desert is never far away. There are courtyards tucked into the folds, one wrapped around a single old tree. Water trickles. The path leads you to the Sacred Heart, the drafting room. Light floods in, and ideas seem to hang in the air. I have to sit at a table, and I press my palms on the wood, and imagine the Guggenheim taking shape, the Jacobs House evolving with every revision. To anyone else, this might feel uneventful or even strange. To me, it's electric. And now I get it, the ego, the obsession, the refusal to conform. When you build a world entirely of your own making, and every detail bends to your vision, how can you not start believing your ideas are destiny? As the sun slips behind the mountains, and I drive back down the quiet road to the ordinary world, something clicks. I thought Wright had shaped Arizona. But the truth is, Arizona shaped him. For Frank Lloyd Wright, Arizona was the best place to execute his vision of an organic architecture. Because here, organic architecture isn't a style, it's a relationship. One we'd all do well to remember.